Manx Radio's Update with Dave Moore.
The time is 5 o'clock. You're listening to Manx Radio. I am Dave Moore. This is Update. Welcome to the programme. Half an hour of the latest news in the Isle of Man, plus sport, business, travel updates along with the newsmakers in person. Coming up, the incoming 20-mile-an-hour zones were discussed in the House of Keys today. We'll hear the latest. Wetherspoons has finally found the Isle of Man, but what's government's take on their arrival? And a final decision about the future of the former Castletown Golf Links Hotel site has been made. That's all coming up in the next 30 minutes. But first of all, the update news headlines with Lewis Foster. Faster my.
Implementing 20-mile-per-hour zones in residential areas across the island will eventually cost around £400,000. The Infrastructure Minister has been questioned on the scheme, saying the rollout is expected to be completed by the end of 2026. The money spent will be split over 3 financial years. The announcement that the Isle of Man is to get its first ever Wetherspoons pub has been met with a mixed reaction. Here's Enterprise Minister Tim Johnston.
I understand the challenge, but at the same time it also creates an opportunity for other businesses to look at what they can do.
The owners of 1886 in Douglas, which is to become the Conister Arms on the 14th of May, say it's a move that will help the capital's high street, adding that the Isle of Man's hospitality sector is on its knees. Current staff will be retained, while it's hoped another 120 plus people will be recruited. The Castletown Golf Links site has been sold by Dendara. The former hotel has been closed since 2007 and has been left to ruin when plans for regeneration never came to fruition. And the Health Minister will ask for a committee to be set up later this month to look at the working arrangements between her department and Manx Care. 4 years after Manx Care came into operation, Claire Christian says it's the right time to take stock and review the relationship. Turning now to the latest international news, the US Attorney General has ordered prosecutors to seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. The 26-year-old is accused of shooting United Healthcare boss Brian Thompson outside a hotel in New York in December. Mangione has pleaded not guilty. The Office for Budget Responsibility says people will feel worse off before they're better off as increases to UK household bills take effect from today. The UK Prime Minister admits the cost of living crisis isn't over. And Paul Mescal and Barry Keoghan have been confirmed as part of the lineup of 4 new films about the Beatles. The Irish actors will play Sir Paul McCartney and Sir Ringo Starr, respectively. Those are the headlines. We'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Lewis. Remaining dry weather-wise, clear skies this evening and overnight. Winds remaining a moderate to fresh south-easterly with a minimum temperature of 6 Celsius. Tomorrow will be similar, dry, plenty of sunshine, perhaps turning a little cloudier later in the evening or overnight. Tomorrow, highest temperature in Shelter, 14 Celsius, but cooler than that in the moderate to fresh easterly winds. And it'll be remaining dry, settled and mostly sunny for the rest of the week, but a fresh easterly wind.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And we begin tonight with the topic of 20-mile-an-hour zones, which was raised in the House of Keys questions this morning. Chris Thomas, MHK, says he doesn't want blanket schemes. He wants intelligent schemes on the 20-mile-an-hour residential area proposals. He agrees with the limit in certain areas, but he says only if a targeted approach is employed.
20 mile per hour speed limits are necessary if you've got a front door, a narrow pavement and then straight out onto a road. But the whole system has to be properly devised according to the evidence of traffic, of speed of that traffic and of accidents, and that's not happening at the moment.
It should be more specific to each general area rather than general.
Yeah, the scheme around Ballacameen High School was well developed in 2023. That needs implementing immediately, but a blanket 20 mile per hour speed limit on Victoria Road, Alexander Drive, Woodburn Road is...
I suppose the argument would be anything that slows traffic down to where it's less likely to cause serious injury is a good thing.
That's true, and the evidence is that traffic calming is suitable and necessary to help that, and this is not going to really... There's enforcement, but not a great deal of enforcement for this scheme, so we need to be more specific and more targeted, because wouldn't the worst thing be if people started using other roads other than Woodburn Road, so that it's less likely that they'll get caught?
But those will be caught up in the 20 mile per hour speed limit as well, the way it's planned.
That's exactly right, and the public don't seem to want that. The public want Woodburn Road, the bottom end of Alexander Drive, Victoria Road.
Is this what you've been told by the public?
I think the public want 20 mile per hour zones in specific places, and that's what they told the consultation, the Living Streets consultation scheme back in 2023 that I organised with officers really well, and we had intensive public engagement back then. That's a good scheme that needs implementing around Ballacameen High School. Everywhere else in Douglas and Onchan and the rest of the island deserves similar attention. We don't want blanket schemes, we want intelligent schemes.
Chris Thomas, MHK. Well, the total cost of implementing 20-mile-an-hour zones in residential areas across the island is expected to be around £400,000. The money is expected to be spent over 3 financial years. Infrastructure Minister Michelle Haywood told the House of Keys the rollout is expected to be completed by the end of next year.
The overall project cost for the rollout of the 20-mile-an-hour residential speed limits, as currently proposed, is estimated to be around £400,000 spread over 3 financial years, and that will include all materials and installation. The initial scheme in Port St Mary total £14,000, and we plan that a total of £130,000 will need to be spent across the scheme that's been proposed for Douglas and Onchan. Overall spend on the Port St Mary and Douglas and Onchan scheme comprises around £40,000 on school signs, £22,000 on general signs, and £80,000 on installation and removal of some existing signage. The projected cost of implementing the remainder of the scheme across the island is estimated at around £250,000 if the scheme that has currently been proposed is accepted and not changed. This comprises around £18,000 on school signs, £20,000 on general signs, and around £200,000 on installation. These figures may change a little as we incorporate the feedback that we've received from residents both in proposed zoned and in non-zoned areas, and we define the signage plan for each location. The installation of the 20-mile-an-hour zones will be undertaken using in-house resources. In the implementation plan that the department has been working to, it's intended to treat Douglas and Onchan as a contiguous residential area. 20-mile-an-hour speed limits are to be rolled out during summer this year. This will be followed by the northern towns and villages such as Ramsey and Kirkmichael later in 2025, before moving on to locations along the central belt, including Laxey and Peel, probably in early 2026. The final phase will address the southern parts of the island, including Ballasalla, Castletown, Colby and Port Erin from summer 2026 onwards. The department anticipates completing the rollout of the proposed 20-mile-an-hour speed limits by the end of 2026.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
A number of changes were introduced today to enhance employment rights in the Isle of Man. They include the right to time off work, to accompany a partner to antenatal appointments, for adoption appointments, and to take care of dependents in emergencies. There are also some key changes in respect of whistleblowing. But there has been criticism over the lack of progress with plans to introduce shared parental leave. Sally Fenton is from Search and Select Recruitment.
Well, it's been spoken about for a very long time, and in the UK, this legislation has been out since 2015. So it seems that we're a little bit behind the times in terms of gaining parity in the Isle of Man. They opened up a consultation in June 22 in the Isle of Man to discuss and gain feedback. They closed that in August 22. They had 387 responses that were received, and the summary states the proposals received were overwhelming in terms of support for this new legislation. And it just seems really disappointing that now we're in 2025 that this has suddenly disappeared off the updates for April the 1st.
Sally Fenton from Search and Select Recruitment. Well, we put this point to the Interim Chief Officer of the Department for Enterprise. So let's hear from Andy Stewart.
We're absolutely committed as a department to bring this forward. It was one of the key planks of our first set of consultations that went through in the bill and now in the Act. So that was to place the enabling provisions in place, which has been done. We were fully intending to bring it in line with the other changes, but given the need to bring forward that allowance element, which is we have to work with Treasury and make sure they have the relevant legislation in place, to ensure it was a fair approach, because we could have introduced the legal ability and a statutory ability to take shared parental leave. And indeed, some employees would have benefited from that because their employer offers benefits already. But you'd have another tranche of people who had a legal right to take the leave, but then didn't have any legal mechanism to have an allowance paid. So we do believe it's important to bring those two things together. So the plan as a department is to bring forward the secondary legislation in either May or June, with a likelihood that will be introduced with effect with the allowance from November. So we're still absolutely committed to making that this year.
And you can find all the details regarding today's changes to employment rights at manxradio.com.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, I can tell you that the Manxman is already docked into Douglas for this evening. In terms of flights, everything down at Ronaldsway is on time in terms of departures. That's Loganair to Liverpool and EasyJet to Gatwick. And on the inbounds, everything's also on time. Loganair from Manchester, EasyJet Gatwick, Loganair Liverpool and Loganair London City. On the roads, the A3 Ramsey to Peel Road is now fully open following drainage and resurfacing work at Craig Willys Hill, which is near Glenhallen. Much of the newly constructed drainage infrastructure has now been covered in asphalt or concrete and is now hidden from view. There'll be another post later in the week showing the different elements that have been put in place. People using this road should be aware that Manx Utilities has a team near Cronky Crossroads who are dealing with a burst water main. Two-way traffic is being maintained there using temporary traffic lights.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside. The government doesn't have any intention to talk with Wetherspoons about their arrival in the Isle of Man. At the same time, Enterprise Minister Tim Johnston admits the arrival of the chain in Douglas will present some challenges to local businesses. Wetherspoons will be taking over 1886 on Regent Street. Mr. Johnson says, though, it will mean more choice for the public.
They're a well-known brand. I think we welcome the opportunity that it provides more choice, I think, on the island. That's a positive thing.
But is it a threat to local retailers?
Well, I don't think so. I think the important thing is, for an open island, the important thing is as jurisdiction that we have choice, and I think that's important. Clearly, we have got some excellent local businesses, and we want to be able to support them as much as possible. But if there's demand there, then clearly
but the local
there's an
hospitality
opportunity.
sector is obviously struggling, is saying it's struggling over the cost of staff, etc. Will they see this as a further problem?
I hope not. I mean, I understand the challenge. Clearly, sometimes what we tend to find in these situations is it does create a challenge, but at the same time, it also creates an opportunity for other businesses to look at what they can do to make sure they're providing the correct offering that's right for what people want.
So step up to the mark, in effect.
Absolutely, I think that's right. I think at the end of the day, it's important that all businesses do that where possible. And we've got some excellent businesses on the island, well-established businesses that people will, with their loyal customers, and I'm sure those businesses will continue to be supported on the island.
Obviously, Wetherspoons see an opportunity here. Any thoughts of the government talking to them and saying, "Can we offer you anything else?"
Well,
they run hotels amongst other things.
I'm not going to speculate at this stage, like I say.
But you're not thinking of having talks with them, talking to them about their intentions?
Well, obviously, our door is always open. The Department for Enterprise always happy to talk to businesses, and if they come to the island and want to have a discussion about plans, we're obviously happy to talk to them about that.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
I know that there could be many parents in the island over the last 25, 30 years who haven't in some way been involved with the Isle of Man Cycling League down at the NSC, and children of all abilities are being invited to try out the event which gets underway for this year at the NSC in Douglas this evening. The event's organiser, the legendary Dot Tilbury, says any youngsters can try it out tonight, whether they want to be the next Sir Mark Cavendish, which is where he started, or they just want to try something new.
Everybody on the Isle of Man is welcome, and we go from 2 years old up to under 16s. Just come down with your bike and you can see what we do, and we help everybody to get going, and you need a crash hat and a bike, and it's £2 per night, and we go right through the summer, not TT week and practice week, to the end of August, weather permitting, of course. It is a come and try at night, so just come down and see what we do.
How competitive is it as well?
Hugely. Well, it is with the people who are keen. Sometimes you get people who just want to run round and talk, and that's fine on the bike. We cater for all, whatever anybody wants to do. The main thing is that they enjoy themselves. You'll see the red and yellow tents, and we hope to have lots of fun. Signing on from about 6 o'clock, 5:45, 6 o'clock, and then everybody lines up, and it's a bit of a military operation to cater for everyone, but we've got it off to a fine art now because we've been doing it for a while. The first is the come and try at night, then we start the series properly on the 8th of April. There's lots of helpers and they're all nice people. You know, if you're sitting watching telly at home and you're not too far from the NSC, it's very, very entertaining. We want as many people as possible down, and you don't have to be an expert. Just bring your bike and your helmet and we'll sort the rest out.
Does that go for kids as well, sitting at home watching TV?
Absolutely. Get off your phones and come down and you'll be surprised. A little bit of exercise and then you can go to bed and you'll be absolutely worn out and you'll sleep like a log.
And parents as well, if you're chasing around after your youngsters, making sure they're doing well. And of course, even if your bike's got stabilisers, it doesn't matter. They'll all be welcome down at the NSC this evening. And a reminder that if you do go down, it's £2 entry fee, and that is a cash payment. So, the Cycling League for the youngsters, which has been going many, many years and has helped produce many fine cyclists from the Isle of Man, underway again this evening in the Isle of Man. Now, the Castletown Golf Links site won't be developed in future. It's been sold and will become a nature reserve, as Amy Griffiths reports.
Previous owners Dan Dara have sold the property to Manx Birdlife and Langness Golf Course Limited. The former hotel sits within a bird sanctuary on Langness and is surrounded by the area of special scientific interest. It's been closed since 2007 and has been left to ruin when plans for regeneration never came to fruition. In a statement on Facebook, Manx Birdlife says it secured more than 60 acres of grassland, coastal heath and salt marsh with the help of Langness Golf Course Limited and Nature Vannin Limited. It will now be managed for nature in perpetuity. The charity says the Langness Peninsula is one of the Isle of Man's most important areas for breeding, migrating and wintering birds. It's now excited to make sure the area remains protected and continues to thrive, alongside the neighbouring Castletown Golf Links, which is also managed with nature conservation in mind. Manx BirdLife says its long-term vision is to make Langness an example of how both nature and people can coexist and benefit from sustainable management. It's now going to undertake consultations and ecological surveys of the site to create a holistic management plan.
When it comes to your music, do you ever think you've had enough of having to and would really like to hear a bit of, or perhaps even it's supposed to hurt. Some, or not forgetting? Well, if you do, you'll be delighted to hear all the Manx Radio specialist music programmes are now podcast. Find your music on Manx Radio Podcasts via the Manx Radio website or your favourite podcast provider. Specialist music podcasts on Manx Radio, the best of music you won't hear elsewhere.
You're listening to Manx Radio. This is Update. 3 political members have joined the Department of Health and Social Care. Minister without portfolio, Tim Crookall, Middle MHK Stu Peters and MLC Diane Kelsey joined Peter Reid, who was appointed last month. Minister Jane Poole-Wilson and David Ashford have stepped aside after serving on an interim basis since November. Health Minister Claire Christian told Siobhan Fletcher she hopes the refreshed political team will focus on what matters to the public.
They've all got very individual skills, and I'm really going to play to their skill sets, and that's what I think is important to, as a department, to really sort of be a team in that respect. The department is huge, as you know, and it does have quite a wide responsibility. But I'm really looking forward to working with these members, and over, as I mentioned before, over the next week or two, we'll be working up their responsibilities and accountability.
Do you have any say in who's chosen to join the department?
Yes, so obviously when I first stepped in, there was a political team already. I didn't think it was the right decision right at that moment because I was new. They were a new political team, and they were already, Minister Poole-Wilson and Minister Ashford were already in place, and also Miss Tanya August-Phillips as well. And to keep the continuity of what we were trying to achieve at the time, it was important to maintain them. And obviously that was not going to be something, having 2 ministers in the department would be quite so sustainable in the long run, because they obviously have their own departments to manage. So I was obviously starting to talk to other members who would be interested in coming into the DHSC. But ultimately, for the public to understand, it's the members of departments are Council of Ministers appointments, so it has to have an agreement for that. But yes, of course, conversations were had with myself, with the Chief Minister, with other council ministers to say, who do you think would be a good fit for the DHSC?
Are you happy that you've got the team that will see you through till the election then?
I'm really excited about this because, as I said, they've all got specific skill sets, and I think you'll see over the next coming weeks how we're going to utilise those skill sets and really be a very strong department, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Sports on the way, but first of all, a candidate in the upcoming Castletown election says he'd like to see work done to enhance Poulson Park, claiming it as an underutilised asset. Bill Galley, who previously stood in 2021, believes the main issues facing residents in the town are the lack of parking and the closure of Market Square to vehicles.
I've lived in the Castletown for a long time, and I have a very pleasant life, and I know a lot of people in the town. I want to give as much as I can back to my community, try and aid them to move forward, do the best I can for them. I just basically want to give back. I've seen things in the town, I think I can help on this. I want to try and help other people in the town to move the town forward and bring the town to the best possible place that we can and improve the facilities we've got for people. I basically want to try and increase the facilities for the young, the old, and in particular the disabled in the town. Want to try and increase and maintaining the proportion of social housing, in particular to aid them to complete the School Hill redevelopment. In my opinion, we need to reform and rebuild the Southern Amenity Centre and to reintroduce the recycling. We need to introduce a utilities voucher and try and aid the local traders by see if we can't reduce the burden of the utilities increases. We've got to aid them with their trading. It would be nice as a professional horticulturist to try and enhance the facilities in Poulson Park with the planting with the playground equipment. Well, the square's a controversial thing in the town, and in my opinion, haven't got a problem with it being closed in the summer. I think that's a brilliant idea. Closing the square in the winter causes a problem because you've got the lack of facilities for disabled parking. We need to find out, as it says on the manifesto, though, are you being listened to? We need to find out from the traders and the public, what do they actually want to do with the square?
That was Bill Galley, who's a candidate in the upcoming Castletown election, alongside Tony Brown, Beth Cannon, John Kringle, Colin Leather, Alan Leonard, Mahendra Kumar Patel, Carol Quine and Lawrence Watterson. Next, though, it's sport with Rob Pritchard. Fast am I.
Fast am I, Dave. Starting with athletics, Isle of Man athlete Sarah Astin has smashed her own women's 10,000 metre Manx record by almost a whole minute whilst competing in the USA. Taking part in this year's The 10 race in San Juan Capistrano in California last Saturday, Astin finished fourth in her race in a time of 32 minutes 34.9 seconds. That's just under 55 seconds faster than her previous island record in the class, set back in 2023. That previous benchmark was 33 minutes 29.39 seconds. Well, as a result, Astin continues to hold a trio of island benchmarks on track, holding the current women's records in the 10,000 metres, 5,000 metres and 3,000 metres. And this latest achievement comes just a few days after Astin received her latest call-up to the Great Britain and Northern Ireland squad last Friday. She'll race for GB and NI at the inaugural European Road Running Championships in Belgium on the 12th to the 13th of April. And away from the track, the Belgrave Harriers and Team Maku runner also holds 3 women's Manx road racing records in the 10 kilometres, 10 mile and half marathon. Elsewhere, one of the Isle of Man's badminton squads has been crowned divisional champions during this year's Badminton England County Championships. Isle of Man 1 has completed a perfect season in Division 2 North, winning all 7 games to finish top of the standings and earn promotion to Division 1. The Isle of Man Badminton Association says moving up to the league above will be the highest level the island has ever competed at as a county. Another Manx squad, Isle of Man 2, has also been involved in the same league this campaign following promotion the season before. They've finished 7th out of 8. And elsewhere in rugby, there's been a big milestone at the weekend for former Isle of Man Sportsman of the Year, Bevan Rodd. He made his 100th appearance for Gallagher Premiership side Sale Sharks in a narrow 27-24 victory over Northampton Saints. Coincidentally, the 24-year-old's landmark game came against the same side he made his Sale Sharks debut against back in 2019. And in an interview with the club's media ahead of last weekend's game, he praised both the first team setup and the young academy prospects coming through, which also includes fellow Ireland rugby talent Patrice Bell.
Thanks, Rob. Now, just before we came on air at 5 o'clock, we were discussing the shocking news in terms of sport that former Isle of Man racing team OMG Yamaha won't be competing in the BSB Championship this year, and they also have an affiliation with WTF Racing. What do we know? What have you found out since we spoke at 5?
Well, actually, just in the last 20 minutes or so, we've just seen an official statement put out by OMG Racing UK. I'll read some of it out for you as follows. Well, OMG Racing are deeply saddened to announce that due to significant commercial circumstances beyond our control, the reigning champions will no longer be competing in the 2025 BSB Championship. The statement is quite lengthy. You can see that on OMG Racing UK's social media channels.
Yeah, but with no mention of WTF Racing so far.